So now we're going to go on to the distributive property. So the long name is the distributive property of multiplication over addition. And there's also a distributive property for multiplication over subtraction, but the distributive property doesn't work with division. So today I will show you that we can multiply the sum of a group of numbers, or use the distributive property to multiply each number separately and still get the same answer. Now that is my definition, which is a short version of the one in the Australian curriculum, but even then it isn't a very obvious definition. So let's look at some examples and then put it into practice. So look at the top left-hand corner. Your student has been asked to find the answer to 3 times brackets 10 plus 2 close brackets, and the answer is 36. So in the first one I've given you the answer, and we're going to do it without distributing first. So you can see that 10 plus 2 equals 12, and below in the array, so an array is just a pattern of numbers and rows. You can see here that we've got 3 rows of 12, so 3 12s is 36. This is probably the kind of thing that you would do in early primary school with students when they're working with blocks and counters and working out the patterns for multiplication. But some students might get stuck on the 3 times 12 tables. So let's have a look at whether distributing it is any easier. Okay, so top left, we've got the same equation, 3 brackets 10 plus 2, but instead of adding the numbers inside the bracket, we're going to distribute the 3 across the 2. So 3 times 10 plus 3 times 2, and you can see on the array, we've this time got 3 rows of 10 squares and 3 rows of 2 squares. And 3 rows of 10 is 30, so students would find that quite easy. 3 rows of 2 is 6, and altogether, of course, it's still 36. So this time, I'd like you to use the arrays that are on your worksheet, or if you don't have a worksheet, just use dots or little drawings, because an array can be any kind of a pattern of rows and columns. It can be circles, dots, pictures, whatever, and illustrate these properties. So 4 times 2 plus 5, 7 times 6 plus 2, 3 times 3 plus 4, and for D, if you have time, create your own. So Mandy will check whether 1 minute's enough for you to do that.
All right, we have 10 seconds to go. And that's it.
Let's move on to the first answer. So check these as you go along. So the first one was 4 times 2 plus 5, and you should have distributed the 4 across the 2 and the 5 so that you had 4 rows of 2 and 4 rows of 5. And of course 4 times 2 equals 8, and 4 times 5 equals 20, and altogether you should have had 28. So before we move on, so just have a close look, make sure you do have that right. So it's 4 rows times 2 squares and 4 rows times 5 squares. And you can see altogether The answer is 28. Let's do the next one. There we go. 7 times 6 plus 2. So this time you distribute the 7 across the 6 and the 7 across the 2. So you have 7 rows of 6 and 7 rows of 2. 7 sixes are 42 and 7 twos are 14. And altogether you have 56. For C, we've got 3 times 3 plus 4. You distribute the 3 times 3 plus 3 times 4. So 3 rows of 3 rows of 4 is 9 plus 12 equals 21.